Welcome back. You're watching Showdown on this triple Showdown special. And for the second segment, we are joined by Labor's Graham Perrott and the Liberal Party's Kelly O'Dwyer. Why are you both laughing at me? We haven't even started yet. Put your serious faces on. This is the final week of Parliament and you should be taking it seriously. Advice from me to you both. All right, so let's start with, let's just randomly pick a subject, Graham Perrott, the Labor leadership.
No, I think we've done this one.
No, we're sticking on this. First question, and I know my viewers want to have someone ask this, and the serious journalists here in Canberra at Sky News probably would refuse to do it. Is the Black Eye affiliated with the leadership issue?
No, sadly it was a rugby game last Sunday, about 8 days ago, where the parliamentary side, bipartisan side, took on the Australian Defence Force. They promised we'd be playing the...
Can you rule out that it wasn't caused by a Rudd supporter on the parliamentary team?
Well, we played the Defence Force. I thought we were going to be playing the Korean War veterans, but as it turned out, we were playing serving members of the military, and they gave us a bit of a touch-up. So we went down 24-10. So
that's clearly what they think of your defence policy.
not as good a story had it been related to the leadership. But let me ask you straight up. I mean, you did come out a while ago now and make the point that you would actually quit politics if there was a Kevin Rudd comeback that was instituted. Now, you did move away from that subsequently, I realise that, but we're in a situation now where that's immaterial. This is the final parliamentary week. You're not going to be doing that, obviously, but you are clearly backing Julia Gillard. Do you think something is going to happen, though? Michael Danby thinks it will. He's still backing Julia Gillard, same as yourself. Are you in step with him on the issue of it actually happening in the next day or two?
Look, I haven't immersed myself in the possibility of it happening, but I should clarify, I've never said a bad word against Kevin Rudd. It was about giving the leader a go. I was a part of the group that overthrew the leader 3 years and 1 day ago. I said I didn't want to do that again because the people in my electorate, which borders the member for Griffiths electorate, were very concerned about that political process. Whilst they understood...
But don't you think the people in your electorate would be more concerned, or you should perhaps, as the person that wants to be re-elected, be more concerned about their attitude towards Kevin Rudd versus Julia Gillard? Because your loyalty might not be in question, but their loyalty is they don't want her as Prime Minister. The polls consistently tell us that, whereas Kevin Rudd, particularly being a Queenslander, apart from generically being more popular anyway, he gives you a real chance of holding your seat.
That may be so, but the best indicator I have of the view of my electorate is an election 3 years ago. That election clearly elected me under the banner of Julia Gillard. So that's where I take my readings from, not from the weekly polls that come and go. Obviously, I do, I'm not naive. I do understand where the polls are heading towards, but I also have a contract with the people of Moreton, which is to, dance with the one that brung you. They brung me.
But let me play devil's advocate to that. We'll come back to you in a moment, Kelly O'Dwyer. Sorry, unsurprisingly, you're happy to sit quiet while we continue this.
I'm very interested in this conversation.
But playing devil's advocate to that logic, the people of Moreton put you in initially under Kevin Rudd, and they were then denied their chance to re-elect you or remove you under Kevin Rudd. They chose to re-elect you under Julia Gillard. You're right on that, obviously. But that said, they also chose right around the country, including in your electorate, to create swings and to give the government a kick. Don't you think that...
My electorate included.
Exactly, but don't you therefore think that there's plenty of logic on the logic you're using to say, I'm going to give my electors a chance to re-elect or deselect me under the person that they originally put me in Parliament with, and that's Kevin Rudd?
Look, Kevin Rudd is a good friend of mine. He ran very hard for me in 2004 when I was a candidate, when he was sort of on the outer with Mark Latham. I've got a very big Mandarin-speaking population. He's a great asset, always has been. We do street stalls together on the weekend. We share branches, we share schools. We have a good relationship.
Imagine how valuable that would be if he was Prime Minister.
Well, he campaigned in 8 electorates in 2010. We lost 7 of those. I was the only one that we won. So
you probably shouldn't have him anywhere near you this time. I mean, it's not much of a hit rate.
I think he's a great asset. As every former Labor Prime Minister is, they get out there and tell the story of what what Conservative governments do. They cut. They're conservative. They conserve the status quo. They don't have a vision for the future. Their focus is always on the rear vision mirror and what was yesterday.
Perfect segue to talk to Kelly O'Dwyer. I'm sure you probably don't exactly agree with that assessment, but it is true that you are part of a ginger group, if you like, in the Liberal Party that's not at that upper echelon of the shadow cabinet that would like to see the Liberal Party embrace a more reformist tendency. How you and your backbench colleagues going to get your way on that when the front bench is, let's be frank, dominated by second 11 players from the Howard Costello years?
I obviously can't agree with the premise of your question there, Peter. No, I liked your question before. I thought that was pretty good. That was right up there about the eye. No, I obviously don't agree with the premise of your question there, Peter.
But the first half, you would be.
Yeah, well, no,
Don't call
I
them
don't.
third 11,
I don't. No. Well, let me go to the substance of what it is that you're actually asking me. Do I think that the coalition is going to be a reforming government? The answer is yes, I do, and there's a lot to reform.
But not enough for your liking, surely.
Well, no. I'm part of a broader backbench and coalition party room that is very keen to discuss policy issues and ideas. I mean, we are not so self-obsessed to be talking about ourselves the whole time. We're not just concerned with whether it's Julia Gillard as recommended by Union 1, 2 or 3 versus Kevin Rudd as backed by, 3 people and their best friend. I mean, to us, this is a much bigger issue than who gets to play Prime Minister for a period of time. We're talking about the future of our country.
Reform? Do you want tax reform? Do you think we need it as a country?
You read, I'm sure, I mean, I know you write for The Australian, but
I avoid the AFR like the plague.
I write for the AFR and I write a column in there under the auspices of the Modest Members, which is in the spirit of Bert Kelly, a very reforming member who talked about the importance of good, sound economic policy. And I've said, of course, we need to look at tax reform now. What this government has done the complete reverse. It has imposed more than 28 new or increased taxes on the Australian people. Probably the 2 worst examples are the carbon tax.
Sure.
And
but what about something like the GST, though? Because the GST is something that your former boss, Peter Costello, would have liked to have seen far more widely applied than it ended up being in a deal that was done with the minor parties to make it law. John Howard overruled him on that. Would you like to see a situation now where, are you of the view of someone like Barry O'Farrell, for example, who pretty strongly thinks that the GST needs to go up or at least have its base broadened?
Well, of course, let's go to who gets the benefit of the GST, and that's the states. It doesn't surprise me at all that state treasurers and state premiers will be arguing very strongly for an increase in the GST and for the GST to apply more broadly across the spectrum. Now, it's for them to make that case if that's their position.
But they need support from the Commonwealth because it's Commonwealth decision-making.
Well, my perspective is, let's see what case they make in relation to that. We've made a very clear commitment going into this federal election campaign, which is, of course, we are not going to touch or change the GST. Now, if the states want to make a case as to why it is that they think they need to do that, then obviously they will do that. And as a legislator in the Commonwealth Parliament, we, of course, will listen to everybody. We don't have closed minds the way that some in the Labor Party do and only listen to their union sort of paymasters here. We're very happy to listen to a broad spectrum of the Australian community, as indeed we should.
The Australian Institute of Public Affairs, would they be a part of that broad church advising you, Kelly?
The Institute of Public Affairs?
Yeah.
Look, you know what? I will open my door to anybody who wants to come in and speak to me and argue a case, and I think that's what we should all do. I honestly think that is part of our obligation as members of Parliament. We need to take people seriously when they come to us with their ideas and policy initiatives. Now, I may then make an assessment as to that, which again is part of our obligation in this place. So I wouldn't say that I agree with everything that they stand for, but certainly I know that they have raised issues from time to time that I certainly think are quite valid.
Graham Perrott, let me ask you about what is going on in the space of refugees policy, 457s, you name it. It strikes me that it's a very different approach being applied now by the Labor government than was the case when the Labor government was first elected in 2007. Is that all just about circumstances, or is it about learning the practical responsibilities of government once you actually get there?
Well, if I could use my journey as an example, 2004, paid up member of Labor for refugees, pretty proud about that policy, quite ideologically sound, but then the practical realities of being on the Christmas Island tragedy inquiry, where I stood on the cliffs at Christmas Island, Flying Fish Point, saw the video of young girls drowning and realised that our policy needed to be recalibrated. Anything that is giving a product to people smugglers, that means people get onto boats, make dangerous journees, and we've got 1 in 20,
But aren't you trying
1
to
in 50.
unscramble an egg now? I mean, that's what the Liberal Party try and say.
But I think this is an important concession, what Graham has just said, and I take you at your word when you say that.
No, I've said it publicly.
I think to say, we got it wrong, which is clearly what you've just said. We need to go back to first principles here. I mean, that's a fundamental concession.
That's one of the problems here, isn't it? That the Liberal Party likes to say the first principles involve the Howard version of the policy, but a lot of experts say that just won't work now. It might still work had it not been unwound. I mean, you have to concede the possibility.
Admiral Barry and the coronial inquests make it very clear that you can't tow back the boats. That's, I'm sorry, it's a great slogan.
But that's not really what I'm saying.
No. But so we do have to recalibrate, and that's why we went to the experts. We got a panel of 3, Houston's panel, and they've come up with a suite of measures, and we've implemented all but one. And I repeatedly say this, I've said it in this very room, that we need to have a vote on the Malaysian people swap, which is the last feature of the Houston's panel's recommendations. We haven't had a vote on that. We've got an opposition unwilling to vote for it. I think we should have a vote for it.
You haven't brought it on in the Parliament.
Kelly, I'm not arguing with you. I'm saying
about losing the vote. That's why.
Well, I'm saying we should bring it on, and because my conscience would be a little bit more clear when it comes. Because at the moment, when we've got
bring it on, even if you don't think you can win. Don't be worried about your parliamentary win-loss record. Have the vote to see if you can get over the line.
What would happen if we didn't win it? Would it lower us in the polls? Let's be honest. Let's have a vote on this, because it's in the nation's interest to get this right. Because there are 15 million people registered as refugees, 45 million people dislocated in the world who would love to come to your streets and my streets.
Let me interrupt. We're almost out of time, so I just want to change the subject. I know. Well, we've got to get some more grabs for the morning news about the Labor leadership. So let's get into that.
You sure we didn't do that already?
Quick question. This is a serious question, even though it might not sound it. Joel Fitzgibbon was your chief whip. He stepped down, obviously, after the March scenario that didn't ultimately unfold of a challenge. When he was whip, Labor didn't lose votes. Labor's lost a lot of votes in the House since then, minor votes along the way, but there's been a lot of failed votes. Is that the fault of the new chief whip? Because Joel Fitzgibbon, for all of his perceived undermining of Julia Gillard, probably more than perceived, let's be honest, he did a good job as chief whip. And since then, there's been a lot of failure in terms of votes.
Well, sadly, the whip doesn't whip the independents, and the independents decide votes on the floor of the Parliament.
There's been a lot of people missing votes. Brendan O'Connor has missed votes, others have as well.
Myself included on my first day as deputy whip. So,
so do you blame yourself?
Very much so.
How did that happen?
Don't worry. It was publicised. So I was in the Whips Hall of Shame in the first day on the job. I was in the Great Hall talking to a
This
Liberal...
is all about the competence of the Labor Party.
I hope there's no votes going on now, because there are suggestions that there could be some, but we've said that they can crack open the door and let you run away and leave me here to fill the airspace if so. All right,
but the reality is the 6 independents determine whether legislation gets over the line or doesn't. And, obviously Joel, for all his many skills, wasn't part of that. It's mainly about the negotiating skills of the ministers and Minister Albanese, who has been phenomenal. When you think of the number of the amounts of legislation that has gone through this Parliament.
Is that why he's been allowed to survive in that role despite each time throwing his support behind Kevin Rudd?
Well, he's not the only person who has supported Kevin Rudd, but Albo is phenomenal.
But the rest of them are all gone. I mean, Chris Bowen, Martin Ferguson, Simon Crean, Richard Marles, Kim Carr, they all went.
And others. The reality is we have a vote, we have a democratic process, you live with the decision.
So are you sure that Mark Butler supports Kevin Rudd? Because he sort of has come out and tried to deny that at different times.
Oh, well, sorry.
Maybe
I've defamed you there. But either way, I mean, the reality is this Parliament has functioned. I mean, there is spin about what is going on in terms of budget emergency and all these lines that Kelly will read off. But the reality is... No. Well, but let's look at the reality. We've got low unemployment, productivity on the rise. We've got balance of trade fine. We've got interest rates low.
You claim
we're going to have to give you the last word, Kelly, right? Because we're out of time. We're now eating. You're eating deliberately, I would argue, into Jamie Briggs's time for his showdown against Nick Champion. Your last chance.
Give me a long answer.
No, all I would say to you is that this idea that you can measure the success of this Parliament based on the pieces of legislation that are being pushed through the Parliament. Firstly, you've got to look at the quality of the legislation that's being put through, and there is there is so much. Well, but it lacks detail.
Right,
I mean, this
I'm
is
going to get the last word on this
point.
because we are right out of time. But you've supported 87% of the legislation that they've passed. But yes, I agree. You're right. I don't think quantity matters. It's quality. I got the last word. Graham Perrott, Kelly O'Dwyer, thanks for joining me on Showdown. Thanks for your company. We're going to take a commercial. Don't leave yet. We're still on air. We're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, Nick Champion for the Labor Party versus Jamie Briggs for the Liberal Party. A pair of South Australians. Back in a moment.